My name is Elena. I'm a teacher, and I love what I do. There's something fulfilling about standing in front of a room full of young, curious minds, guiding them, nurturing their growth, watching them slowly discover who they are. The classroom has always been my safe space, a place where purpose and passion meet. I never thought love would find me in the teacher's lounge. It started quietly, the way many real things do. A shared laugh over forgotten lunch, a conversation about lesson plans that turned into something deeper. His name was Jack. He was a math teacher, new to the school but already well-liked. He had this way of making people feel at ease. His voice was warm, his sense of humor disarming, and when he looked at you, it felt like he really saw you. At first, our connection felt harmless. We were both educators, both committed, both tired, sometimes. We would talk during breaks, joke about students' funny questions, swap stories from our pasts. Over time, these casual moments turned into subtle rituals, waiting for each other before grabbing coffee, lingering after meetings, finding excuses to sit side by side during workshops. It wasn't dramatic. There were no fireworks or dramatic declarations. It was quieter than that, softer, and maybe that's what made it feel so real. Jack never wore a ring. He never mentioned a partner. In all our talks, there were no names, no hints. He spoke like someone who lived alone, thought alone, moved through the world on his own. And I, perhaps foolishly, believed him. The truth is, I had been alone for a long time. Not lonely, but alone. And Jack made me feel noticed, like someone worth knowing beyond just the teacher with perfect lesson plans and a quiet lunch corner. He made me laugh. He made me feel light, and for someone who often carried the emotional weight of her students' lives, that feeling was rare. One afternoon, we stayed after school to help decorate for a student event. It was just the two of us in the gym, stringing up lights, laughing about how bad we both were at tying knots. At one point, I climbed a ladder to hang some streamers, and when I came down, he reached out instinctively, steadying me with his hands at my waist. We froze for a moment. I looked up at him. He looked down at me, and something passed between us. No words, no promises, but something unspoken, undeniable. That night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed the moment over and over in my mind, wondering what it meant. Was this the beginning of something? Was I imagining it? But deep inside, a quiet voice whispered, "He feels it too." The next few weeks, we grew even closer. We began walking to the parking lot together, texting occasionally on weekends. It all felt so natural, and still, never a mention of anyone else in his life. I began to hope that maybe finally I had found someone kind, someone real, someone who understood my world and quietly stepped into it with warmth and ease. I didn't ask if he was seeing anyone. Maybe I should have. Maybe I wanted to believe too badly. Or maybe I trusted him simply because nothing about him felt dishonest. And then, everything shattered. But before that moment came, before the call that would change it all, I remember one morning, sitting across from Jack in the break room, sunlight pouring in through the window, his laughter echoing off the walls. I remember thinking, this feels right. Little did I know, sometimes what feels right is built on what you don't yet know. And sometimes love starts in silence, just before the storm. It was a Thursday afternoon, an ordinary day. The kind of day that passes with quiet footsteps, full of hallway chatter, lesson plans, and gentle fatigue from a life of service. I had just returned home from school, kicked off my shoes, and sunk into the couch with a cup of tea. My phone buzzed on the table. An unknown number. I hesitated for a second, then answered. "Hello." The voice on the other end was soft but firm. A woman. Calm, yet holding something heavy. "Is this Elena?" she asked. "Yes," I replied, confused. A long pause. "I'm Grace," she said, "Jack's wife." My heart stopped. I couldn't speak, couldn't even process the words. Wife. I don't understand, I stammered. Jack never told me. I know, she said quietly. That's why I'm calling. The room around me faded. My tea grew cold in my hand. My mind scrambled through every moment, every laugh, every conversation, every quiet walk to the parking lot. Not once had he mentioned her. Not once had he hinted that he wasn't alone. Grace's voice cracked slightly, just enough to reveal the pain underneath her composure. We've been married 5 years, she said. I love him, and I don't want to lose my family. Still stunned, I whispered, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. I believe you, she said gently. That's why I called you, not him. There was something almost sacred about that moment, a woman choosing to speak with grace and vulnerability instead of anger. She didn't accuse me. She didn't scream. She just wanted me to know the truth. She told me she had seen us together at school, walking too closely, sharing too much. She had her suspicions, and she had proof. I have photos, she said. Of us? Together? I asked, feeling my throat tighten. Yes, from last week. Within seconds, my phone buzzed again. Images came through. Jack and me, smiling by the school's side entrance, sipping coffee in the courtyard. Simple moments, but captured in a way that felt suddenly incriminating. They looked innocent until you knew the truth. My eyes welled up. I felt like I had fallen into someone else's story, one I never meant to be part of. I'm so sorry, I said. I never wanted to be in the middle of this. I know, Grace whispered, but now you are, and I just didn't know what else to do. We sat in silence, two strangers bound by heartbreak, holding the fragile weight of a shared betrayal. I wasn't the villain, but I wasn't the victim either. I asked her, why did you call me and not him? Because I needed to be heard, she said, and because, maybe, just maybe, you care enough to let go. That sentence struck me deep, not as a demand, but as a quiet plea. I did care, and in that moment I realized something that shattered my heart all over again. I wasn't just sad that Jack had lied to me. I was sad that I had allowed myself to fall into a story that wasn't mine to begin with. I won't be a reason your marriage falls apart, I told her. Thank you, she whispered. Truly. After we hung up, I sat in silence. My chest felt heavy, my hands trembling. I looked at the pictures again, not to punish myself, but to remind myself that even good people can be deceived. That love, when built on lies, becomes something else entirely. I thought about Jack, about the way he smiled, about the comfort I had found in him, and I realized what I thought was real was never truly mine. The next morning felt colder than usual. The sky was gray, and even the students seemed quieter. I walked through the school hallways like a ghost, smiling mechanically, responding politely, but carrying a storm inside me. I hadn't slept much. My mind had spent the night reliving that phone call, hearing Grace's voice, remembering her words. Maybe, just maybe, you'd care enough to let go. And I did care, more than I wanted to. But I also needed answers. Later that day, I saw Jack standing by the vending machine, chatting with another teacher. He looked exactly the same, relaxed, cheerful, unaware that everything had changed. When our eyes met, his face lit up. "Elena," he said with that familiar grin, "you look beautiful today." His words felt hollow now. I forced a smile, but my voice was steady. "We need to talk." Something in my tone must have told him this wasn't a casual chat. He followed me quietly to an empty classroom, and we shut the door behind us. I took a deep breath. Grace called me. The color drained from his face. "I know you're married," I continued, voice trembling. She told me everything. He ran a hand through his hair and let out a shaky breath. "I was going to tell you. I didn't know how." I stared at him in disbelief. "You had so many chances. Why didn't you say anything?" "I was scared," he admitted. "I didn't want to lose you." "You lied to both of us," I said, my voice sharp with pain. You let me believe this was something real. It was real, he said quickly. What we had, what we have, it's real. Tears welled in my eyes. Then why build it on lies? He stepped forward. I love you, Elena. I shook my head. No, if you loved me, you would have respected me enough to be honest. You would have given me the choice to say yes or no, knowing the truth. His voice cracked. I don't want to lose you. But you have a wife, I whispered. A life. A woman who's fighting to save your marriage. I can't be the reason she loses everything. He looked down silent. I'm not asking you to fix this right now, I said. But you can't have both of us. You need to make a choice. He stared at me, guilt and confusion swirling in his expression. I need time. I nodded slowly. Then take it. But I won't wait. I turned to leave. My legs felt heavy, my heart shattered. But my spine was straight. My voice had held. My truth had been spoken. Outside the classroom, the world felt too bright, too normal, as if it didn't know what had just broken inside me. I went home that night and cried, not because I regretted walking away, but because it hurt to let go of something I had once believed in. Jack had been a light in my life, and I had loved that light, but now I saw it for what it truly was, a reflection bouncing off a wall of silence and deception. I thought about Grace, about how brave she had been to call me, about how gentle she was even in her pain, and I thought about myself, how I had the power to hurt or to heal, and I chose the latter. That night, I wrote in my journal, I walked away not because I was weak, but because I was strong enough to say no to love that wasn't mine to hold. And that strength, though quiet, would carry me into whatever came next. The days that followed felt like walking barefoot through broken glass. I missed him, even though I knew what he had done, even though I knew it wasn't right. I missed the comfort of his voice, the familiarity of his presence, the way we used to talk about everything and nothing at all. But beneath that ache, something else began to grow, strength. It didn't bloom like a flower. It was slower than that. Softer, like the quiet hum of self-respect rising in my chest. Each morning I woke up and didn't call him. Each time I wanted to ask how he was, and chose silence instead. Each time I reminded myself, I chose me. Still, the sadness lingered. I found solace in my work. My students, in their innocent questions and clumsy honesty, reminded me of the world beyond heartbreak. I buried myself in lesson plans and lunchtime conversations, trying to move forward one step at a time. One evening, the loneliness crept in heavier than usual. The apartment was too quiet. I sat curled on my couch, staring at my phone. I didn't want to call Jack, but I needed to talk to someone. Anyone. So I reached out to my best friend Marissa. We met at our favorite corner cafe. The moment I sat down, she could see the exhaustion in my eyes. I told him the truth, I said, stirring my coffee, not looking up. I walked away. Marissa reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You did the right thing, Elena. I know, I whispered, but it still hurts. Because it mattered, she replied. Because you're human, but that doesn't mean you were wrong. I told her everything about Grace, the photos, the conversation in the empty classroom, the way Jack begged me not to leave, the way my heart ached even now, knowing he still had a piece of it. Marissa listened quietly, like she always did. Then she said something I'll never forget. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose yourself, even when it breaks your heart. Those words stayed with me long after we parted. I wrote them down. I repeated them to myself when the nights got heavy. I clung to them like a lifeline. Not long after, I reached out to Grace. It wasn't an easy decision. I didn't know what I wanted to say. I just knew I needed to see her. We met at a park, under a tree whose branches swayed gently in the wind. She looked tired, but strong. We both were. Thank you for coming, she said. I wanted to check in, I replied softly, to see how you're doing. Grace smiled faintly. It's been hard, but I'm trying. We're trying. We sat on the bench for over an hour, two women joined not by rivalry, but by respect. There was no bitterness, no blame, just honesty. We talked about Jack, about love, about what it means to let go of something that feels good, but isn't right. At the end of that conversation, something clicked inside me. I needed a fresh start, so I made a decision. I would leave the city, a new job, a new school, a new beginning. It wasn't running away, it was setting myself free. Saying goodbye to my students was harder than I imagined. Their innocent faces, their tearful hugs, it broke me. But deep down, I knew this was the right choice. And on my final day, as I stood in the classroom one last time, I looked around and whispered to myself, "This chapter ends with strength, not sadness." I walked out, not with regret, but with the quiet courage of a woman who had lost, learned, and let go. Starting over is never simple. Even when you know it's the right choice, even when your heart craves healing, there's a grief that comes with letting go of what once felt familiar. As I stood on the train platform, suitcase in hand, watching my old city grow smaller in the distance, I whispered a quiet goodbye, not just to the place, but to the woman I was when I arrived. I moved to a quieter town, far enough from old memories, but not too far from the version of myself I wanted to become. The streets were different, the pace slower, the faces unfamiliar. But in that unfamiliarity, I found space to breathe. I found a new job at a local school, smaller classrooms, gentler rhythms. My new colleagues were welcoming. The students reminded me that joy can bloom even when your heart feels tender. I poured myself into my work, not to distract myself, but to rebuild something steady, something meaningful. And little by little, I began to feel whole again. I explored the city on weekends, visiting bookshops, sipping coffee in quiet cafes, walking through tree-lined parks as leaves fell like whispers. I was learning to enjoy my own company again, to sit with silence and not feel lonely. I was no longer looking for someone to complete me. I was learning to be complete on my own. One afternoon, a message lit up my phone. It was from Grace. "I wanted to thank you. Jack and I are working on our marriage. It's not easy, but we're trying. I just wanted you to know how much your honesty meant to me." I stared at the message for a long time, my thumb hovering over the screen. A part of me still ached when I heard his name, but another part felt peace, the kind that only comes when you know you made the hard, right choice. "I'm happy for you," I replied, "wishing you both healing and happiness." I hit send, placed my phone face down, and took a deep breath. That night, I went for a walk through a nearby park. The sun had just set, and the sky was painted in soft shades of purple and gold. There were children laughing in the distance, couples holding hands, and a breeze that carried the scent of jasmine. I sat on a bench beneath a lamp post and let myself smile. Not because everything was perfect, but because I had made it through something painful without losing who I was. Because I had chosen integrity over impulse. Because I had held my heart gently when it was broken. And because I knew, somewhere out there, love would find me again. The real kind. The kind that didn't hide behind lies. The kind that didn't force me to choose between what was right and what felt good. The kind that honored truth, even when it was hard. I didn't need it right away. I was in no rush. For the first time in a long while, I felt okay being alone. More than okay, I felt strong. In time, I made new friends. I laughed again. I danced in my kitchen. I fell in love with my life, piece by piece. And though I would sometimes think of Jack, his laughter, his eyes, the way he made me feel, I thought of him without anger. Some people come into your life to teach you what love is. Others come to teach you what it is not. He taught me both, but I taught myself something even greater. That love is never worth losing yourself for. And as I walked home under that quiet, starlit sky, I knew, whatever came next, I was ready.